Some children never had the chance to be children, not because they grew up faster, but because everyone around them needed them to. They were the calm one when things fell apart, the quiet one who didn't complain, the one who understood things they were never supposed to understand so early. While other kids were allowed to be messy, loud, and confused, this child learned something very different. They learned how to stay strong. And the strange thing about the strong child is this: everyone praises them for it, but almost nobody asks what it cost them. Maybe you've seen this child before. Maybe it was someone in your family. Or maybe it was you. The strong child is the one adults describe with words like mature for their age. They say it with admiration. She's so responsible. He never causes trouble. They handle things so well. But behind those compliments is a quiet truth. Children are not supposed to carry emotional weight, and yet the strong child often does. Imagine a household where tension lives in the air, arguments behind closed doors, parents overwhelmed by life, money problems, stress, silence. In homes like this, children react in different ways. Some become rebellious, some become withdrawn. But one child often becomes something else: the stabilizer, the peacekeeper, the one who quietly adjusts themselves to keep everything from falling apart. They learn to read the room, they notice changes in tone, they sense when someone is about to lose their temper. They become experts in emotional weather, and without realizing it, they begin managing it. They stop asking for things. They stop expressing frustration. They stop crying in front of people. Because somewhere deep down, they reach a silent conclusion. If I stay strong, things will be easier for everyone. Pause for a moment and think about that. A child deciding they must be the strong one. A child learning to carry emotions that were never theirs to carry. At first, it seems like strength, and in many ways it is. But strength learned too early often comes with a hidden cost. The strong child becomes the one people rely on. Teachers trust them. Parents depend on them. Friends confide in them. They become the responsible one, the listener, the problem solver. And from the outside, it looks like they have everything together. But inside, something quieter is happening. Because when a child spends years being strong for everyone else, they slowly forget something important: how to be vulnerable, how to ask for help, how to say, "I'm not okay." Instead, they learn to hide it. They smile when they're exhausted. They reassure others when they themselves feel uncertain. They become the emotional support system for everyone around them. And the strange part is, people start believing that's just who they are. The strong one, the dependable one, the one who can handle anything. But strength is not the same as having no pain, and the strong child often becomes the adult who carries silent weight, the adult who listens to everyone's problems, the adult who rarely shares their own, the adult who feels responsible for keeping everyone emotionally stable. You might notice it in small ways. They apologize too quickly. They struggle to set boundaries. They feel guilty when they disappoint someone. They overthink how their actions affect others. Because deep down, they learned something very early. Other people's emotions feel like their responsibility, and that can be exhausting. Imagine constantly monitoring how everyone feels, making sure no one is upset, making sure no one is disappointed, making sure things stay calm. Now imagine doing that for years, sometimes decades. That is the quiet pressure the strong child carries into adulthood. Here's something people rarely talk about. The strong child often feels the most alone, not because people don't care about them, but because everyone assumes they're okay. After all, they're the strong one. They've always handled things. They've always stayed calm. They've always been reliable. So nobody thinks to ask what they're carrying. Pause for a moment and reflect on this. When was the last time someone asked how you were really doing? Not casually, not quickly, but sincerely. For many people who grew up as a strong child, that question rarely comes. Instead, people say things like, "You're so strong. You always handle things so well. I don't know what we'd do without you." And those words sound like praise, but sometimes they feel like a quiet expectation, as if strength is something you're never allowed to put down. But here's the twist many strong children eventually discover. The strength they developed wasn't just a burden. It also became a gift, because growing up this way often creates people with incredible emotional intelligence. They understand people deeply. They notice what others miss. They sense emotions that others overlook. They become compassionate, thoughtful, perceptive, the kind of people others feel safe around. But emotional strength should never mean emotional isolation. And that realization often comes later in life, sometimes after burnout, sometimes after a relationship where they gave too much, sometimes after years of carrying everyone else. One day, the strong child, now an adult, begins to understand something important. Being strong does not mean being alone. Being dependable does not mean suppressing your needs. And caring about others does not mean abandoning yourself. The truth is, even the strongest people need space to rest, to speak, to be heard, to admit they're struggling. Strength becomes healthier when it includes vulnerability, when it includes boundaries, when it includes the courage to say, "I need support too." If you were the strong child, there is something you should hear. You were never supposed to carry everything. You were never supposed to hold the emotional balance of the entire room. You did the best you could with what you understood at the time. And that strength helped you survive moments that might have overwhelmed others. But now you are allowed to grow beyond that role. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to share the weight. Because real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing you don't have to carry everything alone. And sometimes, the strongest thing the strong child can learn to say is this: "I need someone to listen to."